pretty hot in here today, so I'm not going to hang about as I tell you about my reading plans for July. So July is a month that is chock full of exciting things for me, but fingers crossed it can also be chock full of reading. The most exciting thing that I'm doing in July is that I am going to be going on my Trover trip to Zanzibar, which feels like a long time coming. I'm super excited about it. I think the trip itself is 8 days, but with a little extra that I've added on to the end of that trip and travel time, I think I'm going to be away from home for 12 days total. Now, luckily, I do read quite a lot when I travel in terms of like the flights, which are pretty long each way. And because the Zanzibar trip itself is a mix of like exploration, adventure, wildlife, but also beachside relaxation, I'm hoping to get a little bit read while I'm gone as well. Now, if you have been seeing me jet off on all of these Trover trips and you have been waiting for your chance to get involved, then I am very happy to let you guys know, in case you missed it, that I have just launched my 2026 Trover trip to South Korea. We are going to be hitting up Seoul and Busan, which I'm so excited about because Korea is a bucket list destination for me and the itinerary looks fabulous. So I'm not going to mention it too much, but as it is really new and really fresh, I just wanted to let you guys know if you weren't aware and you wanted to look into it. The link to the trip is in my description box. It will be in the description box of every one of my videos if you would like to come back and revisit it at a later date. And I think at this point there may still be a couple of discounted early bird spots available if you would like to snag them for yourself. But after the Zanzibar Trover trip, I have a 3-day safari, not really anticipating too much reading there. And then the other exciting things I have in July on either side of the Zanzibar trip are 2 events that I'm going to be attending, both of which have lengthy train journeys. And once again, I really do my best reading when I am on a plane or on a train because I have nothing else to do but lock in and read. So I normally get through a couple of 100 pages in each journey. So that is the extent of my plans for the month, which honestly I think is already quite enough to be getting on with. Now for the books that are going to accompany these adventures. The first one is of course the Catch Up Book Club book, with the live show being in July, and that is of course Wrath by John Gwynne. Now the live show for this is going to be falling a little bit later in the month than usual because I am going to be in Zanzibar as well as one of the other hosts at the time that we would normally have the live show for this. So this one is going to fall on the 27th of July at 8 p.m. BST. I think it's going to be on my channel, and the book of the live show is of course Wrath, which is the final book in the Faithful and the Fallen series. If you missed it as well, we do now have the Faith Fall Along Catch Up Book Club bookmarks that are available for sale on my Etsy if you would like one, because I know I had quite a few questions about them and you haven't managed to snag yours yet. Once again, Etsy is linked in the description box. But this one I am very excited about because I have no idea at this point how John Gwynne wraps up a series, and I'm very excited to find out. So this one is an adult epic fantasy series heavily inspired by like the lore and the history of Britain, as well as it has some Norse mythology influences as well, and it is a large cast epic plot surrounding a war between giants and men. So we've been in peacetime for a long time, but there is a prophecy that originates from the Age of Giants that says that there is going to be this avatar for the forces of light and the forces of dark, which are going to be the bright star and the black sun. And when these two people show themselves, the world is going to split and rally behind them in this like epic war of the ages. So at the beginning of this series, this prophecy is just starting to come into fruition. There's a couple of people who know about it, but generally the majority of the characters that we're following are in peacetime. They're just kind of living their lives. And as the prophecy starts to bubble in the background and a few key players are kind of orchestrating its progression, the world gets thrown into turmoil and the peace destabilizes, and these 2 avatars are pushed into the forefront to take up these roles that are predetermined for them. From there, the series gets a lot more dramatic and a lot more intense. I always compare the format of this series to Game of Thrones, where the first book is pretty much just getting you established in the world and setting up the plot, and then the plot actually starts after the end of book 1. We had a very dynamic and dramatic end to book 3, and I'll be honest with you guys, I've already spoiled myself a little bit for this one because some things that happened at the end of book 3. I needed to know like how they were going to resolve just for my own peace of mind. So going into this one, I'm really excited to see how everything wraps up, especially because one of the things that I felt like I'd been missing from this series up until book 3 was some really dramatic plot twists, and we finally got those in the 3rd book, so I want to see what kind of happens as we explore that further in book 4. The other book club book that I have is, I'm pretty sure that this is the final book for my current round of the Alpha Ho book club, which is my Patreon book club, and I'm going to be reading Lady of Starfire by Melissa K. Roweridge. So this one is actually the book for July and August, so I'll probably only read it next month, and to be quite honest, I need to finish the book before this, which is I think Lady of Embers, before I get into this one anyway. But this one is very much on my radar, and if I can manage to fit it in, I will be reading the ebook, and when I'm away I will only be taking ebooks with me, so anything on this TBR that I have an ebook copy of is essentially going to be the priority reads and the ones that I'm actually most likely to get to in the month. So Lady of Starfire could be a very real possibility for the month, but this one is, like I said, I think it's the final book. I'm gonna have to fact check myself here. I do believe it is the final book in the Lady of Darkness series by Melissa K. Roweridge, which is a romantasy series that is very similar to Throne of Glass, following an assassin who has become estranged from the Assassin Lord. She is grieving, and she's taken some time away from her role as one of these like really skilled assassins, and the Assassin Lord thinks that it is time to bring her back into the fold, so he tempts her back with this job that she cannot refuse, which upon its completion will allow her to gain revenge on the Fae Fire Prince that was responsible for the death of her mother. Now obviously everything is not as cut and dry as it seems in the synopsis, and we have a romantic plotline that blossoms throughout this, as well as the exploration of some Fae lands, and we also unlock some magical plot lines in there as well as the world opens further and further throughout the course of this series. Now this is a series that I do have mixed thoughts on. There are elements that I enjoy and elements that I don't so much, so I'm interested to see kind of how the series develops as it moves further and further away from this origin place, which is very, very similar to a lot of things I've read before in Sarah J. Maas. So for the 2 events that I'm attending in July, the first one is for the launch of Terror at the Gates by Scarlett St. Clair. This one is a brand new series from Scarlett St. Clair. Thank you very much to Sourcebooks UK for sending me an ARC copy of this as well. So this one I'm hoping to read within the first week of the month in preparation for the launch of this, and from what I remember, I think that this is kind of like an urban fantasy about a thief that steals a blade, and when she goes to have it appraised and sell it to somebody, as soon as this guy touches the blade, he dies. So she then goes to this guy who I think is some sort of like clandestine ruler of the city, maybe one of the rulers of the underground, and he is very, very worried for the safety of our main character upon realizing what a valuable artifact she now holds. The other event that I'm going to is for Penguin Michael Joseph, and it is actually not directly related to this book, but this is a July release from Penguin Michael Joseph that I'm very excited to read. So like with how I'm going to read this in preparation for the Scarlett St. Clair event, I was thinking that maybe I would read this to get me in the zone for the Penguin Michael Joseph event. This one is released right at the beginning of July. I think it's like the 3rd or something like that. Devney Perry is a very well-established indie romance author. I believe that this is her fantasy romance debut, and I've heard some pretty good things about it, as well as general things about Devney Perry, and as somebody who reads more romantasy than contemporary romance, I feel like this would be a good entry point to me for this author. It is a very, very thick book, which always intrigues me, and from what I remember about this, it has kind of like a vague and generic synopsis, like nothing out of the ordinary, which isn't a bad thing. Like if something has been done before and like the blueprint is solid and you create a really good iteration of it, then that is definitely not a bad thing if it's not the most unique thing ever. But from what I remember, this one surrounds a princess and also a blood pact that she wants absolutely nothing to do with, but I'm pretty sure it's to do with her bloodline that she has to participate in this blood pact, and she's on her way to either break it or kind of like fulfill the bargain that the blood pact entails. And I think the romance might be between her and the person who's escorting her on this mission. For the Patreon picks, I have been catching up for a while. We all know this. If you guys don't know, the top tier of my Patreon get to recommend a book that gets added to this little jar, and every month I pull one out and I read that book in the couple of months that follow it being pulled from the jar. I have fallen behind since the beginning of this year, and I have been like slowly chipping away and catching up as the months go on, and I'm very happy to let you guys know that I actually read 3 of my Patreon picks. I had 6 6, I think. And I read 3 in June. So I have 3 that we're rolling over. 2 of them I am pretty certain are going to be prioritized in July because I have ebook copies of them. I have them on Kindle Unlimited. And the only thing I'm taking to Zanzibar is my Kindle. The first one of these is Rouge by, is it Greer Rivers? This one is a contemporary romance and it is a retelling of a tragic play, although I'm not sure I know which one. And then the other one is Shadowkissed by Rebecca L. Garcia, which is a fantasy romance surrounding vampires. I know that that is not a whole deal of information on both of those, but they have kind of vague synopses where I feel like the only way I can give you anything really more detailed is to either read out the synopsis, which nobody needs, or to read it and then tell you more about it when I've read the actual books, which hopefully will be coming at the end of July. The remaining Patreon pick is kind of a 2-for-1, and it is the one that inspired a video that I posted recently, which was Read and Resume. And that video contained 10 series that I've started where I need to reread book 1 and then continue on with the series. Most of them are fully published or mostly published. So by the time I get to them, like maybe the final books in those series will have been released. But the first series I'm going to be tackling from that video is the Lycanius trilogy by James Islington. So the book that actually came out as a Patreon pick was An Echo of Things to Come, which caused me to realize that I need to reread The Shadow of What Was Lost if I want to continue on with this series, which I very much do, because I loved book 1, and also The Will of the Many by this same author was my favorite book of last year. So this one is an adult epic fantasy series set in a world where they used to have these magical godlike creatures called augurs. They have, I think they've killed them all. I cannot remember the reason, but essentially they've rid the world of augurs. However, they do still have the gifted, and the gifted are people who have some semblance of the augur power, but not to its full extent. Our main character is one of these gifted, and he is attending this academy that all gifted have to go to train them in their abilities to become useful to society. Our main character Davian is doing a terrible job. He's failing all of his classes, and he just doesn't seem to be very gifted after all. And he is sent on a quest, I'm pretty sure, that helps him to unlock his power and realize the truth of his situation. And I am of course also going to be picking my July Patreon pick in this video. So because we've just passed the halfway point of the year, I have cleaned this out. I've got rid of all the stuff I've already read. I've asked for new submissions from my patrons whose books have been picked in the last 6 months. So we have a fresh pile of possibilities. Now for July, if I were to want a certain type of book out of here, I would like it to be something that I have an ebook of or can access an ebook of through Libby or through Kindle Unlimited, so that there's actually more of a chance that I read it this month, because I really want to keep up this momentum that I've created by reading 3 of my Patreon books in a month. So we're gonna go for, oh, this one's a really, really old one. It's yellow. Oh my days. This one is Prince of Thorns by Mark Lawrence. So Prince of Thorns is a book that I actually own. I am a little resistant to read this one though, because I still have not finished the Book of the Ancestor series by Mark Lawrence. I've read the first 2 books and I have not read the third one, but if I'm being honest, I kind of want to reread them before I finish that series, which isn't that the story of my life, but I guess I'm going to be starting another Mark Lawrence series. This one I'm a little wary about. I remember that I bought this from a secondhand shop and we broke down on the drive home, and I read the first couple of chapters because I didn't have a book with me. I knew that I'd heard some things about this book, but I didn't realize how kind of dramatic they were going to be until I read the first couple of chapters of this one. So this one is a grimdark fantasy story about this boy who, I'm pretty sure he's like royalty or nobility, but he's ended up being the leader of this band of outlaws. Now he is like 12 years old or something, and the first chapter of this book is talking about how him and his band of outlaws are raping and pillaging and murdering their way through this community. Like, it's intense, and because of that I don't know how much I'm going to enjoy this. There's the unrealistic aspect of it to start off with, the fact that this boy is like so young and he's supposed to be this big bad leader of outlaws, as well as the fact that it may just be a little bit too dark and graphic for my liking. But I have previously enjoyed Mark Lawrence in the past. I also have one of his books in the stacks, which is his newer series that he's just finished. So I definitely want to read more from Mark Lawrence. It's just of all of his books, this is the one that I'm unsure if I'll enjoy the most. I might be able to get this one from Libby, but I'm not sure I'm gonna get it on KU. And then I just have a couple of, shall we say, mood reads to round us out. The first one is a book that I currently have out from Libby that ideally I need to read before the 7th of July, so we'll see what happens. But that is Rebel Witch by Kristen Cicerelli, which is one of my most anticipated releases of the year. The reason why I have this from Libby and not a physical copy is because I've ordered the Fairy Loot edition, which is only going to arrive next year. And ideally, I would like to read this before the details of Crimson Moth leave my mind and I end up having to reread to continue on with this one. Crimson Moth actually was also one of my favorite books of last year as well. So this one is a romantasy between a witch and a witch hunter, where the witches were overthrown. They used to form the royalty and the nobility of the world, but the witch hunters came in and they got rid of them for good reason. They were abusing their power. However, our main character Rune is a witch and she has dedicated her life to saving witches from the witch hunters before they are executed. Now she is currently hunting down this powerful witch called Seraphine, and just before she finds her, the witch hunters get to Seraphine first. So to find out where the witch hunters are keeping Seraphine, Rune has to get closer to the leader of the witch hunters, Gideon. At the same time as this, Gideon has been tipped off by his friend that maybe he should investigate Rune as this vigilante Crimson Moth figure because they've established that it's somebody hiding within the nobility, and so he starts getting closer to her and fake dating her to figure out if she is the Crimson Moth. And obviously this can only end in tears. And then the last book that I'm going to be adding to this TBR is a potential audiobook because I am currently listening to Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinnerman and I'm having a good time with it. I have not made my mind up about it yet, so stay tuned for my June wrap up if you want my thoughts on that one. But I will say that I am having a good time with the audio, and none of the books that I currently have in this TBR are ones that I intend to listen to the audio of. Sometimes I will dip in and out, so I'll listen to a couple of chapters of a book but read like the majority of it physically. But if I want a dedicated audio read, I'm probably going to listen to Carl's Doomsday Scenario, which is the second book in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. So this one is a lit RPG, which essentially is a book that is told in the style of a role-playing game. So imagine if your character that you're playing was aware that they are a character in a game. So they still have mini maps and they have quests and they get achievements and they level up, but you're reading from their perspective as they participate in the game. And this one is following Carl, whose girlfriend's cat jumps out the window at like 2 in the morning. So he goes out to bring her inside and all of the buildings of the world just collapse into the ground. They just disappear. And Carl is left wondering like what the hell is going on when this voice comes from the ether and tells him that he now has to participate in this intergalactic game show. Well, actually he has two choices. He can stay on the surface of Earth and just survive, however there's no shelter anymore, or he can enter a doorway that goes below ground and be part of this intergalactic game show. So Carl takes his cat, Princess Donna, and heads into this dungeon where he starts to participate in this game, and it is like an RPG game. He has monsters to defeat, there's bosses, he level ups, he gets special armor, and while this is a fun romp through a dungeon, it also has a little bit of satire and is a critique on modern society at the same time. So like I said, I haven't made my mind up on book one, but it is a very enjoyable audio experience. At time of filming, I have 1 hour and 21 minutes left of the audio of the first book on 1.5 speed, and I'm currently at this point intending to continue on with the series. So those are all of the books well, they're not all of the books. These are some of the books that I intend to read in July. Aside from Terror at the Gates, which is not a small book by any means, they're all either pretty intense adult fantasy or really, really big, which doesn't bode well for me, but I'm just going to load my Kindle with a bunch of ebooks and kind of see what happens. I do want my Zanzibar reading to be enjoyable. Like I want it to feel like vacation reading because I'm going to like a beach paradise. So I think my current plan is to alternate between books on my TBR and maybe some mood reads of things that I just already have loaded onto my TBR. I have a bunch of sequels to Kindle Unlimited series that I've started on there, so maybe I'll read a couple of those. And then of course we also have Shelve It or Scrap It, which I am hoping to start before I leave and then finish when I come back. I have 7 books I think to read for that this month, and who knows what they'll be, and then we'll just see how much of this we can chip away at in the meantime. But down in my comments, let me know which of the books on my TBR you are most excited for me to read, or the book that you have on your July TBR TBR that you are most excited to read this month. If you guys would like to let me know you were here but you don't feel like you have anything to say, leave me either a cat or a donut emoji for Carl's sidekick, well, arguably the main character of Dungeon Crawler Carl, which is Princess Donut. But aside from that, guys, please don't forget to like if you liked it or subscribe if you wanna. If you head to my description box, you will find a link to my new Trova trip, my Etsy, but also my Goodreads, my Instagram, and my Patreon if you'd like to follow me on any of those. But that's it from me today, guys. Bye!
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you'll go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.